a good friend. I don't know how we go back, what, 15 years maybe?
Probably longer than that.
Back when, what was the band? Y'all's band was so
10
great.
Mile Drive.
10 Mile Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so Shay's a band guy. He played in bands. He's a writer. He's a producer. And he's developed something that I think is really great. He's kind of developed a team of people that he rotates in and out, and he produces music. And the music he produces, he's got relationships that he brings the projects to, the music to, and you find homes for the music. So that's my kind of quick and dirty introduction. AJ might have a little more complete and proper introduction.
Should say that to you. So, known for his work in TV, film as a composer and songwriter, our next trainer has written and produced many popular artists and bands. In addition, he has toured as a solo artist and in various bands himself. Please welcome producer, songwriter, artist, Shay Watson. Hey.
Hey. All right.
Shay, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so today we've been talking about sync supervision and clearance. We talked about how we work at the Sync Center on the supervision side and on the music side. We want to hear from you and kind of how you work.
Okay, yeah, and I'll give you a little bit more background on me, and maybe some of this can generate some discussion. Hey, there we go. Now I can kind of see myself on the screen. Yeah, there we go. I've really been hitting the sync world hard for probably about 10 to 12 years now. One of the main shows that I work on almost a daily basis is a daytime drama on CBS called The Young and the Restless. I do a lot of the background music for that show and also write songs, but I have music that's in various movies. I just did the third installment of the Cats and Dogs music this past year through Universal. Few movies on Netflix. Aliens Ate My Homework, and let's see, Haters Back Off. I've done music for that show. A lot of the Discovery Channel shows, History Channel, A&E. I've done a lot of underscore for those shows as well. But previous to getting full force into doing television and movie sync, I was, as John said, a band guy. I came to Nashville about 23 years ago, and at the time I was focusing on my writing, but soon found myself in a band that toured for a few years. We wound up signing a deal with an imprint of Sony Music, and it was very short-lived, and went back on the road as a solo artist and then formed a duo. Now, it was at the point that I formed the duo that I first got my feet into TV and film. We had written a song called Bring It On, which was a big football song. I had it on my radar to, at that time I had began exploring possibilities other than the framework of trying to land the label deal in order for us to make money. And in my head, I was thinking, okay, we need to start investigating how to go about getting songs in ads, how to get them in football stadiums, anywhere that music is used. Let's cater a few songs that we think we can take and pitch to these areas. So we wrote a big sports song, Bring It On. It wound up getting licensed by Fox first for their game day programs, Fox Sports, and then it got licensed by ESPN. And at that point, I started seeing how fruitful the sync world could be.
Two
For one,
separate uses.
yes, separate uses. So at that point, it was bringing in a little bit of money, but also at the same time, it was free advertisement for the song and for the act, and something we could put behind our names to get gigs. So we used that and we ran with it. But the band ended. I was at a transitional point in my life where I had been on the road for years with different bands. I was ready to stay home a little bit more. So I did what always was my thing, which was concentrating on songwriting and producing. Started working with different bands that I had met on the road, but always in the back of my mind was, hey, you know, you had these placements, this licensing that did well. Let's start exploring ways that I can translate this to other acts that I'm working with, and we can get residual money coming in for the bands and for myself. We began doing that. We began writing specifically for trying to get songs on ads. Television wasn't as fruitful at first, but I wound up meeting a song rep in LA that has now worked with me for the past maybe 14 years. And she became a champion of my music and turned it on to a couple of music supervisors. One of them in particular, Paul Antonelli, was over at Nickelodeon at the time working on a show called Hollywood Heights. And he started using a lot of pop music that I was doing. And then found out that I was a multi-instrumentalist, trained in a lot of different areas, producer. So through my rep, he began asking, hey, we have need for this type of music that kind of sounds like music they use in Cafe Del Mar, Buddha Bar. It's like a metro type R&B-ish mix. Do you think Shay could produce some of that? So it began just building up a catalog of that music. Well, Paul winds up going over to CBS and working on the show The Young and the Restless. Takes my catalog with him and turns me on to a few of the supervisors over there who started using my music almost every other day on the show. It was crazy how many placements that I was getting. At that point in time, this was maybe about a year or two after working with my rep, I started making trips to LA. We had built up a level of trust to where she knew that I was not going to usurp and go around her and cut her out of any money owed to her for establishing the right relationship. So she began to introduce me directly to music supervisors because it had my music was being used so much that it was becoming cumbersome for the supervisors to come to her with directions and then her to translate them to me. So after that level of trust was built, I began to be introduced to a number of music supervisors, not only at CBS, but at Hallmark, at Lifetime, that could come directly to me and for their needs. And really, that's what began happening. These supervisors would come to me. It was I would wake up at the beginning of the day and I would have messages to either call or text or email so-and-so. We need this top track or this top song in 4 to 8 hours. And so I would jump on the phone and I would get all of the details and I would start working. And I would usually meet my turnaround time. So what was happening was I was getting a ton of work. And the reason I was getting a ton of work was because I have my own studio. I'm a multi-instrumentalist, keyboards, pianist, my primary instrument, but I play all instruments, brass, strings, guitar, also do a lot of programming. So I was turning songs very, very quickly, but you can see how that in itself can become quite a challenge. And this is where we get to developing the team. I needed to move faster because I was getting a lot of work from different sources. And so I started finding people that did what I did, but did it as fast as, and for instance, I'm more of a keyboard player, although I play a guitar and play bass. I'm not as proficient as some producers are in that area. So what I began to do was seek out other producers that I knew were very proficient in areas that I wasn't as proficient in, and I would work deals with them. And the deals were all across the board. At first, I was straight up paying people to do work so I could get this music in. But what I was finding that I was having to go back and forth with, oh, well, we need this change, we need this change, we need this change. So I didn't want to have to be doing payouts every time I asked for revisions. So I wound up working deals with a number of these musicians / producers where I would cut them in on a percentage of the publishing or writer's credits for the songs that we were working on. And that worked out well. I found some guys that were extremely quick, just like me, that were very adaptable, took directions well. And so we began developing a team that way. I would have artists that would see all of this action that was happening, and even publishers and labels that would see this action. And that's when
how you do?
That's when the phone would start ringing for me to, hey, will you work with this artist? Will you work with this songwriter? And you want to say yeah, because as a writer in Nashville, you're always looking for opportunities. But what I was finding, if they didn't have their own studio, and if they didn't have a lot of the capabilities that I was doing, I was just getting so extremely bogged down in work. So in assembling a team and finding specific artists that I wanted to work with, what I always looked out for was, okay, do you proficiently operate your studio? Do you have a studio, and can you use a DAW, and can you do it proficiently and quickly? Especially with vocalists, I would try to find vocalists that could record themselves, that could edit their own vocals, get them back to me. Oftentimes we would not be in the room and trying to make these deadlines that we were making. But that's initially how I jumped into assembling the team as far as that goes. I would also begin to get a request from people other than who my rep was bringing to me. And this was also creating a challenge, because while I was trying to be creative over here, I was also getting requests over here and having to handle paperwork. So I kind of slimlined that and just started sending everyone through my rep. It was worth it to me to have someone else handling the licensing administrative side of things and allowing me to just be creative. Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing.
John, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Can you talk a little bit about the administration part of it that you wanted to offload? What was the dirty work that was being done
Well, for one, there was everything from registering the songs with the PROs, with performing rights organizations, to making sure that cue sheets that were coming in from the supervisors were correct, and that they were making them to the PROs for collection, because a lot of what I was doing was dealing with back end royalties, as opposed to upfront royalties. But also, speaking of the upfront, you would also have to grant licenses to either the producers of the movies or shows that you were working on, and that would be done through the music supervisor. And you're dealing often at that point, they're dealing with two different types of license, which is one which is sync license, just to more so think of it as the publisher and writer granting the rights to use the music in itself, but behind the scene. And you're also dealing with a master license, which is granting the license to specifically use this recording that you've sent in, as opposed to having someone else re-record the song for you. So I was, I didn't have the time to be creating and dealing with that at the same time. So I would offload a lot of that to this person who represented me, and took a commission off of any work that she was doing for me in that area. And speaking of, like, it was fairly easy with me, because I've been in publishing deals previously, but at the time that I really jumped into the sync world, I owned all of my own publishing. And I also, when I was creating the tracks, I owned the masters. I was the producer of the track. So I was kind of a one-stop shop. There wasn't a lot of different people that you had to go through, which brings up a point here. This is something that I discovered early on. When you're working with different artists, you want to have a contract in place to where they grant you the rights to sign off into license. You go ahead, you get their publishing information. A lot of the artists that I work with are not in publishing deals. Some of them are, but a lot of them are not. So they will, we'll do a separate contract to where they grant me the rights to negotiate on their behalf. And if I know that the artist is working or signed with a publisher, I will go ahead and have that artist contact their publisher and have their publisher sign off with me, because the last thing is supervisors, music supervisors move so quickly. Oftentimes with the world that I live in, which 80% of what I do is daytime television, we are moving so fast that literally I will have requests in and I will have to do a turnaround in 4 or 5 hours. That's the window that I have from start to finish of the song. That's creating the song, writing the song, recording the song, mixing and mastering the song, and getting it out the door. So you don't want to be at the same time trying to deal with calling a publisher and then sometimes those guys not having a full understanding and wanting to negotiate up because you've just lost your opportunity at that point. But being a one-stop shop like I am, and having those contracts in place with the people that I work with creates a lot of ease as far as that goes. And then, of course, there's the contract with me that they have that allows them to grant me the rights to sign off, and any of my sub-agents, which would also be my rep. I have a separate contract with her. She negotiates on my behalf, and will work those deals. So everything's covered as far as people coming to get licenses. Yes.
Question, Shay. Do you find yourself negotiating on price, or are they
Oftentimes not.
favored nations? This is the price. It is what it is.
Yes, it used to, and like I said, I really got heavy into this only in the past decade. Once I started making, I see how drastically sync prices have changed in the past just 25 years. After I began making trips out to LA, getting to know supervisors and other guys that have worked in this area much longer than I have for 35, 40 years. I would be told that 25 years ago, negotiation was more common. You could negotiate for some of these spots that I'm just getting back end on. You could get 20 grand up front for those because there was a lot more money on the table at the time. It's kind of, if you think how the world has worked once iTunes and Napster hit, all of our money gets chiseled down. There's not as much money on the table. Well, I think a similar thing must have happened in television. You've got a lot of shows, a lot of networks. You're dealing with streaming, so budgets are not there like they used to. So 20 years ago, you would have maybe, let's say, gotten offered 20 grand. Well, I had one supervisor that I was talking to that told me, yeah, we were making bank back in the day. But then you saw about 15 years ago, it started decreasing. And then it went from 20 grand to 15 grand up front. Then a little shortly after, it was 10 grand up front, then 7 grand up front, then it dropped to about 5 grand. And then slowly it got down to where, people, newcomers coming, were happy with getting $2,500 up front plus your back end. Well, now we've entered into an area to where a lot of times you just sign on to gratis queues, which means that you're not going to demand a bunch of upfront money. You're going to make a living off of the back end that you get off this. Now, let me tell you, that's not the case in every situation. That's a lot of network stuff that I do. Some network stuff I've gotten upfront for, but most of the major network stuff, they know that you're going to make more money because it's going to be played over and over, syndicated, so you're not getting upfront. A lot of the networks that work with, like A&E, certain shows, Lifetime, Hallmark, they'll give me upfront money. They'll offer upfront money, but it's not huge. It's not like it used to be. And usually, John's question was, do you negotiate? Often not. Yes, you can. You can ask for more, but they typically head it off at the start and say, here's what's in the budget. Here's what we have, all in. Are you there? And then you either take it or leave it. I'd rather take something than nothing. But honestly, back end money has sustained me, and it's been really good, and it's residual. So I've been fairly happy with it. Would I love to see a resurgence of a lot of front end money? Yep, absolutely. But in today's day and time, how things are set up, it's not likely at the moment. John, you may have seen the big debate back in 2019 when Discovery was wanting to forego the front end to their competitor.
Yeah, and
that threw us in a big conundrum there, because we were getting so little, and they were wanting you to sign away a lot of your back end.
Yeah,
on that, I should say.
And something, Shay, that we talked about this morning. Let me just pull up one bit, because I think this is vital to understanding the different kind of content we're talking about, all music is not equal, right? There's the different value. Let me find this bit here. Where is that? I'll put my hands on it here and find it in a little bit. But I mean,
Yeah.
you're moving fast.
Yeah.
And you need it done by Thursday or today even. But there's a lot of projects that we're working on for 6 months. And that's kind of what we see here is like, we don't move as fast as Shay does. We've got, we're going after, we're using Garth Brooks, and that's a different, the music is happening at a different level. And there it is negotiated. So I want to kind of,
yeah, and I've had a few of those. Mainly, I would say that those have come from Netflix and ads.
Yep.
And you will get.
Here's this, and this may be worth looking at. Like, there's known music up top, and there's unknown music at the bottom. And the bottom music doesn't have a lot of leverage. Can you guys see that? And up top, there's a lot of leverage. So one size doesn't fit all. What we work on is different from what Shay's working on. We work slower, Shay works faster. We work with maybe known songs and some middle tier songs. Maybe a cue for Discovery Channel. Nobody knows who did that song.
Yeah.
It's just lesser known, lesser leverage song. So you kind of have to go, if they're doing 5,000 a song, you're like, yes, done. No negotiation. So this is something that I think is important because everybody, there's up market, there's mid market, there's down market.
Yeah.
Different headspaces altogether. So just wanted to.
Yeah. Trying to think of some examples, like you said, mostly I deal in bulk and I deal extremely fast. But like, for instance, the two movies that I did, I had about over a month's worth of time to work on those. And it was a thing to where we had a relationship because of the previous project that I had done. And the way that I was approached was, hey, we need songs specifically to be featured in these scenes right here. Tell me some of the artists that you're working with that may vibe with this. And if so, can you create this? Now, at that point, there was a negotiation, and the negotiations were, pretty substantial between my rep
Sure.
with those that were working on it. And then like the Cats and Dogs movie that I did, we had a song in that, and we had to renegotiate everything because we were planning a limited theater run release worldwide, and then the pandemic hit. So we had to, they found outlets for that, but we also wound up doing a direct to Blu-ray and DVD. Well, before, when we thought this whole theater thing was in the mix, we had negotiated in a separate mindset. So we came back and revisited that. But yeah, exactly what you said. It's there's different levels of priority, and most of mine is mid-level to just really quick, low leverage bulk.
Yep. And I would say too, there's even a tier under that, which we talked about earlier, called micro syncs, which are just like super small. We don't play in that market at all. But if you're a wedding photographer or if you're a YouTuber and you just need music under your wedding videos, you can get library music that's micro sync stuff that's just, you pay $20 a month and you get all you can use.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't really ever dealt much in that area. In the beginning, when I first was trying to get into the sync world, I did try out a few libraries, but libraries have never really worked well for me. Mine has always been a let's meet people and let's develop a relationship. And some of the supervisors are even people that if I weren't doing music with them, I'd hang out.
Right.
We have that rapport together, and it's just worked better for me than trying to get in libraries, things such as that. But I could see how, if you had enough music and putting it in a library, how it may possibly become fruitful for you, but just an area I haven't really ever explored that much.
Yeah, totally get it. So, Shay, can you talk about the relationship? Because one of the things we talked about earlier is like people are everything, especially in sync. People are everything. Relationships, high integrity, low bullshit.
Oh gosh, yes.
No secrets, no surprises.
Absolutely.
Shine a light on why that's important.
I'm going to shine a light on a few things and try not to get myself in trouble, because there are a few situations that I haven't really had to deal with as much as up until the pandemic hit and everybody got desperate and weird, for lack of a better term. In the past, like back to the conversation that we had earlier, making sure contracts are in place. I've always been a guy who honored relationships. Between my rep, when she began introducing me directly to music supervisors, she knew that I was not going to be going behind her back, working back end deals with these supervisors and cut her out. That's just not built into me
Small world.
To be like that. Yeah, because people talk. I'm going to give you some examples. A few years ago, I was working with, this has happened with a couple of artists that were also producers that I brought in. I was working with a couple of them and getting their music on television shows, and when they start seeing the royalty statements and how well that was, their true colors started shining. And I will not mention any names, but I remember the first time I got a call from a rep and a music supervisor who said, Shay, I don't know how so-and-so got our information, but I just got a call today with them trying to pitch me music that your name was not on. And that doesn't sit well with me. Did you know about this? I had no clue.
What talk about that? What does that mean? Music that your name is not on. What is that?
Well, when I brought them into the relationship, we were creating music. They knew that I was the one with the relationship with the rep and with these supervisors. And supervisors are very protective of themselves. It's not that easy to get to know them on the level that I've gotten to know a few of them. And so this artist wanted to go around me and the rep directly to the supervisor and pitch their back catalog, which none of us had anything to do with. And that just wasn't a cool thing to do. I mean, it would have been cooler if the artist would have come to me and said, hey, I know we've been doing these songs. I've got some that kind of sound like this in my back catalog. Is there a way that you can maybe see if ex-supervisor would listen to this stuff for me. Even if I would have been approached like that, with me not having an ownership in the song, no writers credits, no producers credits, I may have been more apt to let that relationship happen. But instead, it was a go around your back type thing. And really, I think it bothered the supervisor and the rep more than it bothered me. I mean, it bothered me. I was like, yeah, people do that. That's just the nature of people. But they, it created a tension. And after I thought about it for a while, I no longer work with that artist. And what I'd found out was that was not the first time that had happened with that artist and with people in my position. So they really kind of shot themselves in the foot there. So that's one of those just honor type things.
Yeah.
Think about the way you go about things matter. Just be upfront with everything you're doing. The thing that I started dealing with in the pandemic was this. We had worked a lot of these deals to where, like I said, I could sign off on granting rights, also with my rep. So when I do music for The Young and the Restless, Y&R, I do a ton of songs for that show. A lot of them that wind up being featured songs on the show, and they pay well. Well, in order, and you also find, let me back up. These are not one-time usages of these songs. Oftentimes, if a supervisor finds a song that they would like, specifically, I'm going to give you an example from that show. There was one song that I'd written called Hanging On that at one point, it was just used like 10 times a week and over a huge, long, extended period. And that adds up. But in order for the supervisors to pull that goes directly into their system that they use for those specific supervisors that work through the parent company, Sony Music, TV and Film. Well, what I had found, what I've recently had happen was, and this has been four different artists that have come to me. One that got a record deal based off some music that we had written, where they included the songs that we had written for Y&R on their Schedule A for the publishing company and the label. And I wound up getting a request to pull everything out of the catalog that Sony Music TV was using in their system. Well, of course, that didn't sit well with me because, hey, yeah, you've gotten a deal over here, but you're basically asking me to go to the supervisor and ask him to remove 20 plus songs that we've done together that has made me a substantial amount of money, and that has also made my rep a portion commission off of that over the past year. And what I wound up doing in that situation was explaining to this particular artist, hey, that's not kosher. Let me just talk to your people that you're working with, explain the situation. Let's see if there's a way we can get some of those taken off the schedule, or have the rights. That situation worked out well. We wound up being able to leave the songs in the catalog. Another artist came to me that had gotten signed to a boutique publishing deal, which was a smaller publishing company. They had dealt with old school publishing for a while, which was getting songs on albums with artists and platforms, but they had just started getting into the sync world and didn't quite understand fully how it worked. They came to the artist and requested, again, this artist / songwriter, singer-songwriter had put the songs we had done for the show, specifically that I'd been requested to do for the show, on her Schedule A and turned it in. And I was asked to remove those songs from the catalog. And it was that whole thing again, going back to the supervisor and, hey, this is happening. But before I went to the supervisor that time, I said, put the publishing company in contact with me. They contacted me. They didn't want to negotiate. Her attorneys and the publishing company said, no, if we own the publishing on these and we're representing the songs, we want them to remove from any other catalogs. So now we're actually still dealing with that situation right now, because when the tracks were created, this particular artist, I had neglected to get my producer form granting me the rights to the masters signed. Now, she had signed other rights over, but to the masters, and that's what we're dealing with right now. Is I'm trying to keep these masters in the catalog, and she's trying to claim ownership of that and remove it from the catalog, which has created a lot of tension.
Question, Shay.
But I will say this, and now lesson learned from this: the supervisor knew this artist, and the rep had known this artist. And both of them said, we will never use another song from this artist other than the ones that are in the catalog if they stay there.
Yeah.
It's a small world. Word gets around.
That's a great story. Can I ask a clarifying question? So, Shay, that's really a question of admin rights?
Yes.
Right? I mean, like, you've got admin relationships with your soups, and then second publisher fairly kind of says, okay, well, now for this writer, your co-writer, we control admin rights for her.
Yeah, they're saying we control 50% of the master license on this, and we're not going to grant you.
That's strange.
Our portion.
I mean, that's kind of a short-sighted.
Very short-sighted.
If a song's getting traction and getting worked and getting plugged.
Yeah, and the thing is, we know this particular artist that every Christmas for the past 3 years, we make bank off of Christmas, because I've done a number of pop Christmas songs with her. And so it didn't make sense to me. What I proposed was, if you're concerned about the publishing, because they're publishing / boutique record label, call themselves a record label, that's dealing with this, why don't we just have an assignability clause to where with the PRO, we go in and she assigns her publishing portion to them.
To the publisher.
For whatever reason, they don't want to do that. And I think I kind of know the reason. People who are coming to the game, they have a lot of them discount the back end residual, and I think that they discount it because when you're dealing with residuals, half of it goes to the publisher, and half of it goes to the writer. The writer's always going to keep their back end share of the residual. Money that comes in quarterly. That's the part that the publisher doesn't touch down here. The only sense that I can make of it is because it's split, the publisher sees this as not as much money, and they want to go after the bigger fish.
Yeah, upfront.
Big upfront fees, but it's just a harder thing to go after with pre-existing songs. I found all of my upfront money that I have made has not been me taking songs in my previous catalog and pitching them to movies. It's been a supervisor coming to me saying specifically, this is what I need. And so taking pre-existing songs and going for big upfront money, it's just going to be harder. So but that's the only sense I could make out of their stance on that.
Right, right.
But this scenario that I'm describing has happened about 4 times to me since the beginning of the pandemic. And why I think that's happening is people are trying to find money and opportunity. They've been sitting around in their homes, not on tour, so they're signing these deals and dealing with people that don't know the world of sync and TV properly, and it's just creating a lot of friction. It's put me in a very weird headspace, but to where a lot of artists, I'm just like, I don't want to take on a new artist. I don't want to take on this person. I'm just going to concentrate with these people I know are trustworthy here that I've already got.
Yep, totally get that. That's great, Shay. Any questions, guys? I mean, I know Shay's got a full day after 12:30 here. Do we have any questions for Shay while we have him on?
I just had one question. Do you prefer, Shay, working in a fast-paced turnaround, or do you prefer? Some people thrive on that. Like I like quick deadlines, and so
I do. I think better fast-paced. I've joked, and my friends joke that I'm kind of like McDonald's of music. I mean, I turn out so much volume quickly, but I found that if I have more time to think, I found that my snap decisions on music that I make, often those beginning decisions after I either have read the description or watched the scene that has been sent to me, I'm often correct on how I'm feeling the scene in the beginning, and I would just jump into it and immerse myself in it and make it happen very quickly. Now, but here's something that I also do. If I do have a little bit more time, where it's like you've got a day and a half to do this, I'll do multiple options for the scene to send. But I've almost got it down to a science, and I found that my snap decisions and my quick movement is it works out for me. I make better decisions having to think fast.
Mm-hmm. Actually, you also work with some well-known bands.
Yes.
What was their name?
Blessed Union of Souls.
Yeah.
Is one of the ones that I'm working with right now. Matter of fact, we got a video that's coming out here in about another week or two called Smile. We've been running some promos on that, and this brings up a good topic. When I do have well-known bands that I've worked with, it does pique interest in the reps, because some of them will remember a lot of the not reps, the supervisors, because a number of the supervisors are my age range, which I'm 47 and above, a lot of them that I'm working with. And so we were often, in high school and college at the same time. So like Blessed Union Souls, they were ironically one of my favorite bands when I was coming up, because they were a piano-based rock band, and I used to play a lot of their music. So when they first came to me, wanted me to produce songs for them, I knew that I wanted to also gear it toward sync. And to give you a little background, Blessed Union Souls, their number one big hit was a song called I Believe, which hit in 1995. And they've had 8 top 10 singles since then. Most of their success was in the late 90s, early 2000s. Hey Leonardo, She Likes Me, For Me, I Want to Be the One. Songs you'd recognize, but you don't know the band name now. I've been able to get the band a lot of placements, and that's been very good for residual money. And a lot of that's come just because the supervisors remembered the band from back in the day, and it was cool having that relationship. Another thing that has been interesting to me is I've worked with a lot of kids of very famous musicians, and and that's kind of a touchy thing to deal with there, because a lot of times they want to stand on their own and be known on their own without knowing mommy and daddy's work. But obviously, if you have a name like for instance, and she wouldn't mind me saying this, but Lily Winwood, Steve Winwood's daughter, I've done a lot of work with her. I've met Steve. I hung out at his 69th birthday party the night before we did our last sync thing that I was speaking on.
Nice
for you. But
good.
We've never used Steve to open those doors, but the supervisors, I would notice when I was first sending in her songs to them, they had liked it. And then fortunately, I get a couple of placements up front, and then I'd later get asked the question, hey, I've noticed she's kind of got a little English accent in the last name Winwood. Is there a relationship there? Like, the daughter. And then I'd find that, all of a sudden, we're getting a lot of placements, but that's happened with a few famous, a few kids of famous people that I've worked with.
Question, Chris?
So what is your general process in film and TV? Do they give you some kind of like a QuickTime movie, or is it go all over the board? Sometimes
Oh gosh, it is all over the board. I'll explain a few of these to you. Used to, in the early days, I'd wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning, and like I said, I would have messages from the night before. Hey, I need you to give me a call. And on some of those, they wouldn't even take time to send a clip to me. It would be like, here's the scene. And I would even get a portion of the dialogue. I would get references. We want it to sound like this. Here's the time. Here's where this is going to happen. Give me a call. And I would call the rep, and they would talk me through the scene, and I would jump on it. Other times I will get sent the clip. They would do that. I would make the telephone call, and then they would say, I'm sending the clip over. I want you to watch it. And I would just import the clip into Pro Tools, and I would write to that. But these shows, again, if I were doing underscore, I would send fit to the clip. But a lot of these would be featured song. So you want to, that it makes it a little difficult because they want you to write a full song for that, because oftentimes the shows have rabid fan bases who want to buy the songs, which is a crazy notion to me. Well, not a crazy notion, but you think of like daytime TV. I would not think of The Young and the Restless as being something where somebody hears a song and then wants to buy it. But they do. These shows have these rabid fan bases where people discuss everything from the dialogue to the songs on the show. So I would get sent a scene. Here's the scene. I'd look at it. I would watch it. But we want you to write a full song for this, but one that we can scale down and fit to the scene. Or one that you can potentially, like the last one that I did, I wrote the full song, I had the scene, and then I went in and scaled it down and sent it back to them. And they came back and, hey, well, we liked this part, but can you get the drum intro that happens right here during the silence that kind of fades in on this? And then I would go back and do some re-edits on that. Now, a side note, a song that I did a couple.
Are you in surround sound also? Are you working in surround sound or no?
I'm not.
Just two. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Now, And when I get it to a level, I send it to the supervisor. The supervisor, one of them is also lead composer on the show, and he also does mixing and mastering. So he'll ask for the track itself, and then he will also ask for stems. So if he needs to make any adjustment for surround sound, they're the ones that do that. I will give you an example. This was probably about 5 or actually 6 years ago. I'd written a song called Something Beautiful. And one thing you may not know, John didn't mention, after I'd had initial success in the TV and film industry, I was making pretty good money. I decided to invest back in my education. I've been through law school, and I'm also a lawyer now. But I remember my first year of law school 6 years ago. I was walking into my first exam, and I get a call from my rep, Shay. I looked on my phone. She had left a message. Call me. And I'm like, okay, what's up? Probably need something for a deadline. And, but I've got to concentrate on this test. So I went in, took the test, came out and called her and she said, you've been nominated for an Emmy, for a daytime Emmy for a song that you did, which was kind of cool for me. But that particular song, Something Beautiful, it was in such a featured scene. There was no dialogue, and they played the song that this people off the fan base started buying that song. And I started getting emails of, and I would get sent wedding, what do you call them, wedding brochures, to where people had taken that song and used it in their wedding. And I thought, how cool is that? You heard it on a daytime TV show, and you liked the song enough to purchase it, and then use it for this special moment in your own life. And just things like that are, pretty cool. And that goes beyond the money making to like the real, you had an impact on somebody point.
Jay, I mean, what you just described was something we're going to talk about next week, which is welcome to the experience economy. It's not really about silver discs anymore. It's about all the different ways people experience music.
Yeah.
And whether it's downloads or Young and the Restless or a t-shirt or a live stream or a VIP press the flesh thing, that's how people experience music, and there's 30 different ways, so.
Well, what's funny to me is like these sometimes different shows like the Lifetime and Hallmark stuff, they may not see your name in the credits, but they'll go to the website TuneFind or one of those where it's basically a listing of the show, and then it lists all the songs that are used in that series, and they'll find the information. Then they'll actually go to your website or your social media and contact you.
Right.
Because of this rapport that that they developed with your song, this song that they've wanted.
Love it.
Very interesting thing.
Yeah.
And they'll download it and pay you, but you're making some money. But man, I will tell you, we got to figure out a way to get more money off of the whole streaming thing from Spotify and Pandora and purchases, because that's really hurting us on that end. But fortunately, we still have sync to make us income to keep us afloat over here.
Yep, I love it. All right, Shay. Hey, anything else you want to share to our guests here? I know you've got a few minutes left. You've got a busy day, but anything else you want to kind of build in and share with people that you maybe wouldn't share in other places? Because the mission here is to build the next generation of great artists. So, it's like,
let me just offer a couple of nuggets that I've had to get my head wrapped around. One size does not fit all. Don't listen to this one way of doing things and think that you've got to work yourself into that. Find what works best for you. I mean, I could be envious of those guys that well, I could be envious of the scenario that you have, John, where you've got this time to work on these full feature lengths and do this. But I'm not, because I found that the whole speed thing and the whole bulk thing works for me. That's in my nature.
Right.
I don't need to try to fit myself over here. I work well over here. Find what works for you, and start small. I mean, just look for opportunities. One thing that I did early on, and this is, fortunately, I didn't have to spend a whole lot of time on the extreme lower level stuff, but I made a list everywhere that music is used. When I'm out in public, where am I hearing music? I'm hearing it on overhead radio. I'm hearing it in elevators. When I take a flight, I'm hearing it on an airplane. I'm hearing it in malls. I'm hearing it. Where all is music being used? And then just approach people. There's no specific way to go about to do it. Well, I will say the specific way is, don't be pushy and be cool, but politely investigate and meet people. And I know that's very difficult in this day and age, but with the whole coronavirus thing, it's harder for face-to-face meetings. I've always done better in face-to-face meetings than cold calls and emails, but just explore and see where it goes. It's going to go somewhere, you don't know exactly where, but don't put that pressure on you of having to fit in a box and do this and this way, because what works for me may not work for you. And have integrity with what you do. If you're asking yourself whether you should do this or not, whether you should cut this person out, go around and talk to this person over here, don't do it. You're asking yourself that because there is a little bit of a moral dilemma there. And the world of supervisors is small. People talk, and you don't want a reputation. You want to think long term.
Right.
Long term. Also, I will say this: don't get discouraged in the beginning, because like I said, it's maybe around year 12 of me being heavy in sync. My first 2 years, I was doing a lot of writing, and there's John, especially when you deal with back-end royalties, there's a lag for one of your creating and you're trying to get your music placed. So you start getting a few things placed, but you don't see money immediately, because there's like a two-quarter lag sometimes, depending on when you get the placement to when your PRO, your performing rights organization, pays. So I was sitting there getting discouraged, thinking, man, done all this work, where's this money I'm supposed to be getting? But then you see it 2 quarters later, and at that point in time, I only had like a page in my royalty statements of what I was getting paid for. But now, fast forward 10 more years, and I open up my royalty statements, and sometimes I have 25 pages of show after show, episode after episode, of residual income that's built up over the years. Because not only am I getting it from immediate placements, but I'm seeing, syndicated over here to Portugal, to Spain, to the UK, to this. And then you filled up to where literally when the pandemic hit me, it hit because the shows halted production. And at first we were not able, but I sustained because I've had years now of residual royalties that have been built up to where I have that money coming in every quarter. But my point is, it took me over a decade to get there.
Yeah.
5 years in, I was making a good income, one to where I could support my family. But, now 10 years later, I'm making a substantially good income off of that. So don't get discouraged in the beginning. Just don't get discouraged.
Right.
Think
Love
long term.
Shay, thanks
And
so much.
Last thing, this will open up doors for you. If you're successful in this area, you'll start getting phone calls from publishers and record labels wanting you to work with their artists. And then at that point, you have to decide whether you want to devote time to work on album songs, even though nobody creates albums anymore. But it'll open up those doors for income in that area too. Just kind of compounds. So be encouraged.
Awesome. Shay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shay. Thanks, Shay. Lovely meeting you. Thank you for your time.
Nice meeting you too. Oh, and feel free to follow me on social media. Shay
We'll share the links.
something. You'll find
We'll share the link. Awesome, guys. Well, that completes Hacking Music this week. This is day 5, sync, supervision, and clearance. We'll be back next Monday at 10 o'clock Central Time, where we're going to be talking about what, AJ? The experience economy.
Experience
economy.
And Chris will be with us as one of our guest trainers.
Yep. Glenn Peoples from Billboard Magazine. We're going to be talking about e-commerce, creating remarkable experiences and touching your fans in ways that serves them and monetizes what you're doing. So we'll see you back here Monday at 10.
Thanks, John.
Thank you so
Guys,
much.
have a great weekend.
Thanks a lot, guys. Have a great weekend. Enjoy.
Thank you, Shay. This was awesome.
It all began down on J Street, a good place to meet. We set off heading by the moon. We strolled along down to L&M. We do it again, fast as friends. We could walk in and light a room, and so we punch out a common pool, exchanging truths. I guess it sets you free, 'cause I've never been lighter than this before. Give me more and more, to a distant shore, you take me there. I'd leave it all behind. Been waiting on your sunshine. I see the light up the sky. Been waiting on your sunshine, and I'm sure I've never felt this fine. Light my way. Shooters at midnight and skin to skin. The feeling's back again. That anything is possible. The past is gone and the future's here. My direction clear. A force that's unstoppable. And so we stop at a street light. And with all my mind, I looked in your eyes and told you that I'd leave it all behind. Been waiting on your sunshine. I see the